What we do want is someone who can provide to the board a current, near-term and long-term view of the results, the prospects, the capital and funding structure, the risks of the entity. When it comes down to the accounts, also to provide a clear description of the judgments and choices that are made in deciding what the balance sheet is and and what the profit and loss shows, and a clear description of the material issues so that the directors can use their own independent judgment as to whether those things have been handled correctly. And equally to have an early warning skill so that you do let the board know a long time in advance of impending issues. So the skills, ideally, you'd have been a line manager. I think there's an enormous advantage to a good CFO to having been a line manager and understand the stresses they're under and understand the issues they're faced and the difficulty of them giving you the information you need to do the job. You need to have absolute clarity of thought, analysis and communication, and an ability to reflect on the external environment, as things the directors are concerned about are not those things which has happened or have happened, it's those things which might be going to happen, and I'll come back to that in a moment when I talk briefly about risk. You need to have a detailed knowledge of accounting and reporting and those sort of risks, because frankly, even as a well-qualified accountant, it's impossible as a director to keep up to date with those things. And we do rely on the fact that you're not only telling us what's happening at the moment, but you're signalling well in advance of what the trends are going to be in reporting and accounting standards, how they may affect the organisation and how may they may affect what it is that we need to think about. What are we looking for? Well, when you're dealing with risks, I thought that it was very instructive what John put up on the board from Judith's presentation earlier. The issue is not about dealing with individual risks. When the world goes wrong, it goes wrong because many risks happen at the same time. And one of the biggest difficulties in modelling is that it tends to model single events, and the models are not good enough at the fact that when life goes to hell in a handbasket, the risks are all correlated. And that's what happened in the financial crisis. The risks were all correlated to one. Everything went wrong at the same time. And that's what we need to understand. And we need to understand it well in advance and have early warning signals, so significantly ahead of when the issues hit, we've either raised the capital or lengthened our debt funding or done whatever it is we need to do to make sure the organisation is secure. You need a 3 to 5 year view on profit, on ratios, on covenants, on everything to do with particularly the financial side of the business, so that one understands again where the risks lie and so that you're acting well in advance of the pressure of time. And if you consider those New Zealand listed companies that have had difficulties in the last few years, the majority of them have had weak CFOs. And reflecting on what Joan said, one should never join a board if you don't have a first-rate CFO. You're just simply asking for trouble in there. Early warning signals, and that requires you in your job not to be so busy you haven't got time to think. You must have time to reflect on what you know, to reflect on what's being said to you, to reflect even on what the CEO is reporting to the board. Because I like to see in the CEO-CFO combination a balance of personality, a balance of risk-taking, a different view so the board gets both views. And equally, you should never work for an organisation where the CEO is not allowing you to say precisely what you think when you think it. You've got to be able to run excellent control systems, both on financial reporting. I chair the audit committees of both Fletcher Building and currently at the ANZ National Bank. I spend considerable time with the CFOs, understanding how they control their financial systems, how they make sure all the reconciliations are up to date, the skill that goes into making sure you're reconciling things intelligently and not merely trying to make two figures add together, which is not much use to man nor beast. So to understand what's going on in the financial reporting, to get at the risks of the organisation. Now in a bank, that's not the CFO's role, that's a chief risk officer's role. In most other organisations, non-financial organisations, those roles will be together. So you do have to be able to think about those well, and inevitably about audit issues, so that we need CFOs who have strong communication with their auditors, who are completely and utterly honest, and the minute you find on a board that information is not coming through to you, you should resign. Emerging business issues are important, and I'll come back at the end to really talk about two things. The CFO's role is to make sure the board understand the risks, understand how they're correlated together, and to think about not only about the financial risks, but the other risks the organisation faces. And secondly, you've got to worry about cash. No business went broke by having too much money in the bank or having too much capital. Lots of businesses went broke the other way. The issue about the long-run effect on your covenants, on your cash capacity, on your cash earning capacity is simply vital. So from my point of view, perhaps moving on from what was said before, that's how I think good boards think about your role and how you should think about whether you're providing what we need.